Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about impact rookies in fantasy hockey and players to pick up in fantasy football. Check out my fantasy sports blog at hockeywiztalksfantasy.blogspot.com. Impact rookies in fantasy hockey. Jack Hughes has been highly hyped for a long time, and he seems to be the real deal. As of right now, Jack Hughes is projected to play on the line with Nikita Gusev and Wayne Simmons, but he could finish the year playing with Taylor Hall. If Hughes does play with Taylor Hall, he has the potential to get 70 plus points. But even if he plays with Nikita Gusev, he can still get 60 points, because both are very skilled players. Gustav Olofsson made an impression towards the end of last season, and in the preseason this year. The Sabres have high expectations from Olofsson this year, as he is expected to play on the first line with Jack Eichel. Olofsson has the potential to get 30 goals and 60 points if he does play with Jack Eichel. Kaapo Kakko. While Jack Hughes might have the higher potential, Kaapo Kakko is without a doubt more NHL ready. Kaapo Kakko can do it all offensively, and should be one of the Rangers' go-to players right away. Kakko has the potential to get 25 goals and 60 plus points this season. Cale Makar is going to play a major role for the Colorado Avalanche this season. With the departure of Tyson Barrie, Cale Makar is expected to fill his void on the first power play unit of the Avalanche. Cale Makar has the potential to get 10 goals and 40 points this season. Quentin Hughes is expected to play a huge role on the blue line for the Vancouver Canucks this season. He is projected to play on the Canucks' second D pair and the much improved first power play unit of the Canucks. Quentin Hughes has the potential to get 10 goals and 45 points this season. Elvis Merzlikins is slated to tandem with Jonas Korpisalo with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Most people are not very high on the Columbus Blue Jackets this year, but I think they should do okay. The reason is because the Jackets are going to be that team that is going to be hard to play against every game. Elvis Merzlikins could be a valuable goalie in a deep league with large rosters. Check out my Facebook page, Mr. HockeyWiz777, and my Instagram, Mr. HockeyWiz77. Fantasy Football Waiver Wire. Players to pick up for Week 4. Daniel Jones made a splash with his first NFL start, throwing for 336 yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 3. He will face the Washington Redskins in Week 4, which will be a major test for him. Daniel Jones should be a major fantasy player moving forward, especially with Saquon Barkley injured. Darrell Williams had a breakout game in Week 3, rushing for 62 yards and adding another 47 yards receiving. His fantasy value really hinges on the health of other Kansas City running backs. But if both LeSean McCoy and Damian Williams are out, Darrell Williams will be the lead rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs. Darrell Williams and the Chiefs will face the Detroit Lions in Week 4, which will be a good matchup for him. Ronald Jones has clearly established himself as the more effective running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jones is averaging an impressive 5.3 yards per carry and has put up at least 10 fantasy points in 2 of the first 3 weeks. Ronald Jones and the Buccaneers will face a stingy LA Rams team in Week 4, which will be a real challenge for him. Sterling Shepard had a breakout game in Week 3, putting up 100 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, totaling 27.10 fantasy points. Shepard seems to be one of Daniel Jones' favorite targets and could be in line for an increase in fantasy production. Sterling Shepard should be owned in all leagues, now with Daniel Jones as the QB of the Giants. Philip Dorsett has totaled 50.90 fantasy points through the first 3 weeks of the season. Dorsett seems to have established himself as a major part of the receiving corps for the Patriots, and could play a greater role if Julian Edelman misses any games. Philip Dorsett and the Patriots face a stingy Buffalo Bills defense in Week 4, which could pose a challenge. Wayne Gallman. With Saquon Barkley out 4 to 6 weeks, Wayne Gallman will be the lead rusher for the New York Giants. While you can't expect Gallman to duplicate what Saquon Barkley does, Gallman can still be an effective back in the NFL, which gives him some fantasy value. Gallman's first test is against the rival Washington Redskins in Week 4. Jordan Akins had his breakout game in Week 3, putting up 73 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, for totals of 22.30 fantasy points. Akins could be an option at tight end in a deep league, or if you need a temporary replacement for George Kittle, who has a bye week in Week 4. Akins and the Houston Texans will face the Carolina Panthers in Week 4, which is a solid test for him. Josh Lambo. Josh Lambo has maintained perfect accuracy through the first 3 games of the season and is now 6 for 6 on field goal attempts. He has put up 22 fantasy points through the first 3 weeks of the season and has a great matchup against the Denver Broncos in week 4. Josh Lambo's efficiency should make him a consistent fantasy option. Green Bay Packers defense. The Green Bay Packers defense has been one of the most productive defenses in fantasy football this year. The Packers defense has totaled 37 fantasy points through 3 weeks this season and have scored more than 10 fantasy points in every week so far this year. The Packers will face their biggest challenge yet as they try to slow down Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles in week 4. In my next podcast, I do an NHL season preview and I also do an NHL standings predictions.